For more than 60 years, as the magnetic lead singer of the Rolling Stones, he didn't just help define the sound of rock music, he became a lasting symbol of the entire counterculture era. His explosive stage energy and unmistakable voice carried the band from the vibrant early music scene in London all the way to worldwide superstardom, yet behind the spotlight and the roar of millions of fans, Mick Jagger has always had to navigate the ups and downs of a very public personal life, one filled with high-profile romances and the constant challenge of maintaining a larger-than-life image. Come along as we follow the incredible journey of Mick Jagger through the world of rock and roll. Mick Jagger, frequently called rock's greatest frontman, was born on July 26, 1943. He is a powerhouse British singer, songwriter, actor, and producer whose impact on music and popular culture remains unmatched. Together with the Rolling Stones, Jagger exploded onto the music scene in the 1960s and has held the world's attention ever since. His one-of-a-kind voice and electrifying stage presence have turned into pure legend. As the lead singer of the Rolling Stones, Jagger helped create some of rock and roll's most timeless hits. Their music, a powerful mix of raw intensity and deep emotion, has built a huge worldwide following and earned countless awards, but Jagger's talents have never been limited to music alone. His work in film and his sharp business instincts have shown just how versatile he really is. Even at the peak of fame, Jagger's private life has always stayed in the public eye, shaped by a long string of high-profile relationships and the difficulties that come with living such an outsized existence. Like his music, Mick Jagger's heart has always moved from one rhythm to the next, from one romance to another, creating a portrait of a man who loved with the same passion he brought to everything else. It all began in the electric atmosphere of the swinging 60s. Young Mick, with his wild mop of hair and that razor-sharp cheekbone smile, found himself with Chrissy Shrimpton. She wasn't just any girl, she was the face that launched 1,000 mod looks, sister of the legendary model Jean Shrimpton. They were London's golden couple, arm in arm, living the high life where the music never stopped and the cameras never stopped clicking. But like a shooting star that burns too brightly, their romance faded fast. Not long afterward, singer Marianne Faithfull entered Mick's world. With her golden voice and matching eyes, she wasn't just a muse, she was a reflection of Mick's own intense creativity. Together they made music and memories, but even the sweetest songs eventually reached their final note. Their breakup became the talk of the town, a love that had soared high but had to come crashing down. Then came Bianca Perez Mora Macias. Mick Jagger's marriage to Bianca Perez Mora Macias perfectly captured the rock and roll lifestyle he represented. They met in 1970, and their whirlwind romance quickly became tabloid gold. The rebellious Stones frontman and the stunning Nicaraguan-born beauty. Their wedding on May 12, 1971 was a glamorous event set against the sun-drenched French Riviera in Saint-Tropez. The occasion drew a who's who of the era's cultural elite, fellow band members, celebrities, everyone eager to witness the union of two of the most talked-about figures of the time. Bianca, radiant and pregnant, wore a white Yves Saint Laurent suit and instantly became a fashion icon. The photo of the couple outside the town hall remains one of the defining images of 1970s rock extravagance, yet beneath the glossy surface, their marriage was full of strain. Jagger's non-stop touring schedule with the Rolling Stones and the temptations that came with it put enormous pressure on the relationship. Bianca, often left on her own, became a fixture of the international jet-set scene, carving out her own identity as a passionate advocate for humanitarian causes. Their public appearances often hid the tension simmering underneath. Later interviews with Bianca would reveal stories of loneliness and neglect, a stark contrast to the glamorous life the public imagined. Jagger's infidelity was an open secret, and the tabloids loved detailing every rumored escapade, feeding the growing narrative of a marriage in trouble. Their divorce in 1978 was every bit as high-profile as their wedding, marked by a bitter legal fight that the whole world watched closely. Bianca famously said, "My marriage ended on my wedding day," a line That perfectly summed up the disillusionment of their relationship. The split only added to the myth surrounding Jagger, a man whose personal life was as wild and turbulent as the music he created. The end of his marriage to Bianca didn't slow down his romantic adventures, it simply opened the next chapter in his legendary personal story. Rumors about the real reasons for their divorce swirled endlessly. Some said it was never truly a love match, more a marriage of convenience and image, a strategic move in the game of celebrity relationships. Others whispered about secret deals and hidden agreements, though none of those rumors were ever backed up with solid proof. After the divorce, Bianca continued building her own path, becoming a prominent human rights advocate and environmentalist. Her work with the Bianca Jagger Human Rights Foundation established her as a respected international voice in activism, her legacy far outgrowing her marriage to Jagger. As for Mick, his romantic life remained endlessly fascinating to the public. Marriage and divorce were subjects he rarely discussed in detail, keeping a level of privacy and mystery that has always surrounded his offstage world. As the 1980s arrived, Mick's heart found a new rhythm with Jerry Hall. She was a tall Texan model with golden hair and a smile that could brighten the darkest London street. They exchanged vows under the Bali sun in a ceremony as exotic as it was heartfelt, though it later turned out the law didn't fully recognize it. Mick and Jerry's life together was a wild ride of love. They had 4 children: Elizabeth, James, Georgia May, and Gabriel. They were the picture-perfect rock star family, but even the best pictures eventually fade. They went their separate ways at the end of the millennium. Throughout it all, Mick was a father many times over. Karis, his firstborn with actress Marsha Hunt, came into his life like a sweet melody. Then there was Lucas, his son with Brazilian model Luciana Jimenez, whose arrival marked the end of his time with Jerry, and the youngest, Devereaux, the littlest Rolling Stone, with ballerina Melanie Hamrick. Mick's life has been a rich tapestry of love stories, each one a bright thread in the colorful fabric of his existence. He has loved fiercely, sometimes messily, always honestly. His relationships have been as public as his concerts, and he has never hidden from the joy or the pain that comes with each one. Mick's journey also included plenty of challenges. Back in the day his wild parties were legendary, the kind where the music blasted, drinks flowed freely, and the crowd became a blur of dancing bodies. But one such bash at Keith Richards' place in 1967 got too loud, and the police showed up. Mick found himself behind bars, facing a 3-month sentence. It was a real scare, but he got off on appeal thanks to a sharp legal team and a bit of luck. That wasn't Mick's last brush with the law. The late 1960s were a turbulent time. Another arrest came with girlfriend Marianne Faithfull. Then again in 1972 after a scuffle with a photographer. Mick was part of that rock and roll world that danced with danger, where living on the edge was simply part of the daily routine. Mick's troubles weren't only with the police, he also had a taste for the wild side, and drugs were part of the scene. He was open about it, experimenting with everything from LSD to heroin. But here's where the story takes a turn. When Jerry Hall entered his life, she drew a clear line. She told him straight, "Clean up or I'm gone." That was the turning point. Mick, perhaps realizing what he stood to lose, decided to kick the habit. It wasn't easy, but it was that or lose Jerry. His hedonistic lifestyle wasn't only about drugs, it was the whole package. The man was a magnet for chaos, with a love life full of more twists than a mystery novel and parties that never seemed to end. During his musical career, Mick Jagger went through a real spiritual evolution. His spiritual journey has been as varied as his music. Growing up, he was part of the Church of England, standard for kids in Britain at the time, but life takes unexpected turns. When he married Bianca, he switched to Catholicism, because love can make you do surprising things like that. Later on, Mick explored a quieter path, finding peace in the stillness and calm of Buddhism. Picture him, the rock and roll legend, sitting with Buddhist monks, starting each day with meditation, lost in the rhythm of ancient chants. But Mick has never been one to stay locked into just one belief. He also read Richard Dawkins' The God Delusion and found himself agreeing with much of it. It seems he's more drawn to the vast wonders of the universe than to the idea of one single divine being. He has said he thinks fighting and dying over religious ideas is the worst kind of battle. Now we turn to Mick Jagger's incredible musical career. Mick Jagger's musical journey started long before the world knew his name. In the 1950s he was just another kid with a deep love for music. It was at Wentworth Primary School that he first crossed paths with Keith Richards, but their early friendship faded when they went to different schools. It wasn't until a chance reunion at a train station in 1961 that their shared passion for rock and roll came roaring back to life. They bonded instantly over records by Chuck Berry and Muddy Waters, their love for rhythm and blues pulling them together. That meeting would become the spark for something much bigger. With Keith's devotion to guitar and Mick's magnetic voice, the two were set on a path that would shake the very foundations of rock and roll. Little known fact: before fame took over, Mick was actually a student at the London School of Economics. A path that feels worlds away from the swaggering rock icon he would become. It's almost funny to picture Jagger, the rock legend, sitting in economics lectures, but it was exactly there that he met the final pieces to complete the band that would become the Rolling Stones. In those early years the Rolling Stones came together in a shared apartment filled with late nights and endless music. Brian Jones, Charlie Watts, Bill Wyman, and Ian Stewart joined Mick and Keith, forging a group that would soon become the ultimate symbol of rock rebellion. Their first official lineup took shape in 1962. And the band quickly built a reputation with gigs at places like the Marquee Club in London. Back then their life was all about fusing blues and rock, guitars grinding against the backdrop of a society on the verge of massive cultural change. It was about electrifying performances in smoky, crowded clubs, performances that laid the foundation for what would become one of the greatest rock bands in history. Names like Alexis Korner and Cyril Davies may not be household names today, but in Mick's early years they were crucial. These British blues pioneers gave the Rolling Stones some of their very first gigs, and it was under their influence that Mick really honed his craft. One could argue that without those early blues leaders, the Mick Jagger we know today might never have existed. The band officially took the name the Rolling Stones after a Muddy Waters song called Rollin' Stone. They started playing gigs at venues like the Crawdaddy Club, where their reputation exploded. It was there they caught the eye of manager Andrew Loog Oldham, who immediately saw their raw energy and massive potential. Oldham played a huge role in shaping their bad boy image, deliberately positioning them as the rebellious alternative to the clean-cut Beatles. That reputation stuck. Oldham also pushed the band to start writing their own songs, leading to the legendary Jagger-Richards songwriting partnership. It was their original material that eventually lifted the Rolling Stones from a covers band into a true musical powerhouse. By 1964 the band scored their first big hit with Not Fade Away, a cover of a Buddy Holly song that perfectly captured their rock and blues fusion. Their self-titled debut album, packed with blues covers and one Jagger Richards original, became a commercial success and cemented their place in the British music scene. Some people speculated that their sudden rise felt too perfect, suggesting the music industry had manufactured a Beatles rival. But those theories didn't hold up against the band's obvious talent and the growing army of fans who loved their raw sound. The Rolling Stones quickly became known for their explosive live shows. Jagger's dynamic stage presence, often described as both mesmerizing and slightly dangerous, helped establish him as one of rock's most iconic frontmen. As the decade moved forward, the band's sound evolved. The raw blues edge of their early days began mixing with the psychedelic influences of the time. Albums like Aftermath, 1966, and Between the Buttons showcased this change, featuring more complex arrangements and a wider range of instruments. Aftermath marked a major turning point. It was their first album made up entirely of original material. Much of it reflected Jagger and Richards' growing songwriting strength. Songs like Mother's Little Helper and Under My Thumb were sharp social commentaries, capturing the shifting attitudes and tensions of the era. The Jagger-Richards partnership was in full bloom. Hits like Paint It Black and Ruby Tuesday proved their creative chemistry. By the end of the 1960s, the Rolling Stones had firmly established themselves as legends of rock rebellion. Their music had grown harder-edged, lyrics often reflecting the social and cultural upheavals of the time, but it wasn't only their music pushing boundaries. Mick's stage performances were unlike anything audiences had seen before. The Jagger swagger, complete with pouty lips and those legendary hip moves, became iconic. He was the beating heart of the band's live shows, pulling crowds into a frenzied, almost hypnotic state. In the midst of all this success, the Stones courted controversy, both deliberately and unintentionally. Their rebellious image wasn't just an act, it was a lifestyle that frequently landed them in headlines for all the wrong reasons. The band's music during this period also sparked strange fan theories. Their 1967 album Their Satanic Majesty's Request, with its psychedelic sound and surreal artwork, fueled rumors that the band was dabbling in the occult. Speculation reached fever pitch with the release of Sympathy for the Devil, a song some believed was literally a tribute to Lucifer. The Stones never fully denied the rumors, perhaps enjoying the mystique it created. It was also a time of personal growth for Jagger. His relationship with Marianne Faithfull, an icon in her own right, was highly publicized. Faithfull was often credited with influencing the band's style and sound, especially with the hauntingly beautiful As Tears Go By, which she co-wrote with Jagger and Richards. The innocence of the early 60s was gone, replaced by a new era of introspection and experimentation. Albums like Beggar's Banquet, 1968, and Let It Bleed, 1969, were raw and gritty, reflecting the changing times, with tracks like Street Fighting Man and Gimme Shelter. The 1970s era kicked off with the release of Sticky Fingers in 1971, an album that introduced the now iconic Tongue and Lips logo and contained some of their most enduring tracks. This period saw Jagger evolve both as an artist and a celebrity. His reputation as the ultimate rock star was strengthened by songs about excess and hedonism, mirroring his own life. The band's 1972 double album Exile on Main Street became a classic, a ragged masterpiece that drew from the full breadth of American music traditions. Yet even as their star continued to rise, the Stones were dogged by controversy. The early 70s were marked by infamous drug busts, Keith Richards' arrest in France for drug possession in 1973 and the following legal battles added another layer of notoriety to the band's image. Rumors swirled that authorities were determined to make an example of them. Amid all this chaos, the Stones kept producing hits. Angie, a ballad from the 1973 album Goat's Head Soup, showed the world a more reflective side of Jagger and the band. However, the album received mixed reviews, leading some to signal a possible decline in the band's creative power. By the mid-1970s, the rock landscape was shifting. The raw energy of punk was rising, and disco was taking over dance floors. The Stones adapted With Some Girls in 1978, an album that included a disco experiment with Miss You and a nod to punk with Shattered. This flexibility proved the Stones weren't stuck in the 60s, they remained a vital force in music. As the 1970s drew to a close, the Rolling Stones faced internal tension. Jagger's growing celebrity and outside interests began creating distance between him and Richards. The tensions within the band became tabloid fodder, with speculation running wild about a possible breakup. Despite the personal and professional drama, the Stones' end-of-decade releases, including Some Girls and Emotional Rescue, were both critical and commercial successes. These albums showed the band's remarkable ability to stay relevant, and proved Jagger's creative well was far from empty. Jagger, always the embodiment of rock's shape-shifting nature, found himself at a turning point. It was during this era that he stepped out as a solo artist, releasing She's the Boss in 1985. His debut solo album was met with huge anticipation and curiosity. Fans and critics wanted to know if Jagger could capture the Stones' magic on his own. The album, featuring the hit, Just Another Night, showed his gift for writing catchy tunes, but it also stirred tensions within the band, especially with Keith Richards. This solo venture was seen by some as an act of defiance, a signal that the legendary Jagger-Richards partnership, known as the Glimmer Twins, might be fading. Amid his solo projects and band tensions, the Rolling Stones kept touring. Drawing massive crowds and proving their collective magic was still alive, their live performances remained as electrifying as ever. With Jagger's stage presence undimmed by time, the tours reminded everyone of the band's longevity, and their uncanny ability to unite fans despite rumors of discord. Looking ahead to the 1990s, Jagger and the Rolling Stones entered a new musical era dominated by the rise of grunge, hip-hop, and electronic sounds. It was a time that demanded reinvention and a reaffirmation of their relevance in a constantly changing musical landscape. In 1991, the Stones ended a 3-year hiatus and returned to the studio to record what would become Voodoo Lounge, a return to their bluesy roots that eventually earned them a Grammy. The album's success showed the Stones' enduring appeal, and many saw it as a comeback, though in truth they had never really gone away. It proved that even as musical trends shifted, the Stones could still capture the spirit of the times. During this period, Jagger, now in his late 40s, still strutted across stages with the same youthful swagger that had become his trademark. The Stones' tours were record-breaking events, with the Voodoo Lounge tour becoming the highest-grossing tour by any artist at that time. Jagger's ability to captivate stadium-sized crowds remained as powerful as ever. As the world moved toward a new millennium, the Rolling Stones showed no signs of slowing down. They released Bridges to Babylon in 1997, experimenting with new sounds and producers. The album received mixed reviews but demonstrated the band's willingness to evolve and adapt to the current musical climate. Rumors that once clung to the Stones like a second skin began to fade, replaced by a clearer narrative of survival and longevity. The band had become living legends, with every new album and tour adding to their mythos. The year 2002 marked the band's 40th anniversary, an occasion they celebrated with the release of 40 Licks, a greatest hits compilation that also included new tracks. It was a clear sign of the band's lasting popularity, with Don't Stop and Keys to Your Love proving Jagger and his bandmates could still write hits. The accompanying Licks tour saw them playing packed stadiums around the world. Mick Jagger's personal achievements were also highlighted during this era. In 2003 he was knighted for his services to music, becoming Sir Michael Philip Jagger, an honor that recognized his contributions to Britain's cultural landscape and beyond. However, the accolade wasn't without controversy. Keith Richards publicly expressed disdain for Jagger's acceptance of the knighthood. "It's a guy who went to the London School of Economics, for cripe's sake, you know what I mean? This is like not one for the high arts," Richards said, viewing it as a betrayal of their anti-establishment roots. The comment sparked fresh speculation about the state of their relationship. Richards later wrote in his book Life, "I used to love Mick, but I haven't been to his dressing room in 20 years. Sometimes I think, I miss my friend. I wonder, where did he go?" The early 2000s saw the Stones still grappling with the weight of their legacy. The release of A Bigger Bang in 2005, their first studio album in almost 8 years, was met with critical acclaim. Songs like Rough Justice and Streets of Love echoed the band's classic sound while proving they could still deliver fresh material. Yet even as they celebrated their past, the Rolling Stones were not immune to the passage of time. Health scares, including Jagger's throat surgery in 2004 and Keith Richards' head injury in 2006, served as reminders of their mortality. These incidents fueled rumors that the band's future might be in jeopardy, with fans and critics wondering whether the Stones could continue at the same relentless pace. The band's influence extended far beyond music, with Jagger's sharp business sense coming to the forefront. He was involved in various ventures, including launching the band's fashion line in collaboration with Tommy Hilfiger, showcasing his understanding Of the Stones' brand power, Jagger never stayed far from the spotlight. High-profile appearances, like performing at the 2006 Super Bowl halftime show, kept him firmly in the public eye. He continued to be a cultural touchstone, connecting with new generations of fans and artists, and remaining as relevant as ever. The 2000s also reaffirmed Jagger's influence on popular culture. The Rolling Stones' music was everywhere, featured in films and advertisements, and covered by artists across every genre. Their legacy wasn't just about longevity, it was about adaptability and an uncanny ability to stay in tune with the spirit of every era. The 2010s unfolded as a bittersweet chapter for Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones, weaving triumph together with personal tragedy. The decade marked the band's 50th anniversary, a milestone few groups ever reach, let alone with the same vitality the Stones still displayed. In 2012 they celebrated their golden milestone with the 50 and Counting tour, where Jagger, Richards, Watts, and Wood proved age had done little to dim their energy or showmanship. Fans, some spanning 3 generations, packed their concerts, showing the timeless power of their music. The Stones' new music during this era included the release of Blue and Lonesome in 2016, an album that took them back to their blues roots. It was a heartfelt tribute to the music that first inspired them to pick up instruments, and it earned critical praise. It also won them a Grammy for Best Traditional Blues Album. However, the 2010s were not without heartbreak. In 2014 Jagger faced profound grief with the sudden death of his partner, fashion designer Ren Scott. Her suicide was a tragedy that struck deep into the heart of Jagger's personal life. Ren Scott was a towering figure, not only in her physical height, over 6 feet, but in the fashion world where her designs dressed some of the biggest stars. She had an eye for elegance that could make even the simplest dress feel extraordinary. But Mick Jagger, the swaggering frontman of the Rolling Stones whose voice and moves defined rock star energy, lived in a whirlwind of music and fame. In he found a kindred spirit, a calm center in the storm. She became his partner, his confidant, and for 13 years they were together. They were an unexpected pair, Ren and Mick, she the quiet force behind stunning gowns, he the electric legend on stage. She brought timeless grace into his world, and perhaps he brought a spark of wild energy into hers. Her absence left a silence in Mick's life, and in the fashion world that once buzzed with her creativity. The band, showing their deep loyalty, postponed their tour of Australia and New Zealand, giving Mick the space he needed to grieve. When they returned to the road, Jagger's performances were as powerful as ever, the Stones resuming their tour with shows that hid his personal pain behind electrifying energy. Amid these personal storms, the Rolling Stones remained a cultural powerhouse. They played a historic free concert in Havana, Cuba in 2016. An event that would have been unthinkable during the height of their fame when rock music was banned in the country. As with any iconic figure, Jagger has never been free from conspiracy theories. There were whispers that his seemingly endless energy and youthful physique couldn't just come from genetics or a disciplined lifestyle. Perhaps there was something more unusual at work. These theories, while never proven, added another layer of intrigue to the ever-mysterious singer. As the world moved into the 2020s, the Stones faced the future with their legacy firmly secure, ready to meet new challenges and continue their reign as rock royalty. However, Jagger's life has never been without darker moments. The sudden loss of Ren Scott in 2014 sent shockwaves through his world, a painful reminder that even behind the indestructible stage persona was a human being vulnerable to deep grief. The Rolling Stones launched into the No Filter tour, proof that their hunger for live performance remained unstoppable. But it wasn't just longtime fans filling the seats. A new generation was discovering the Stones, with Jagger's dynamic presence as captivating as it had been when they first exploded onto the scene in the 1960s. In interviews, Jagger often reflected on his career, the evolution of the music industry, and his own creative process. He showed sharp awareness of his place among rock's all-time legends, always looking forward even as he carried the weight of an extraordinary legacy. but the band's journey wasn't without obstacles. In 2019, Jagger underwent heart surgery, a stark reminder that even rock stars are mortal. The news of his procedure, and his remarkably quick recovery, became a source of both concern and speculation. Fans and media wondered what it meant for the band's future, but Jagger was back on his feet, ready to tour again within weeks. Jagger's role in the band and his solo projects continued to overlap in interesting ways. He returned to acting, starring in the thriller The Burnt Orange Heresy in 2019. His performance reminded everyone of his versatility, and his ability to command attention not just as a musician but as a performer. No critic has spoken to this guy in over 50 years, not just as a singer but as a true performer. The web of Jagger's family is vast, with his children's lives sometimes becoming as public as his own, from Jade Jagger's work in fashion to Elizabeth Jagger's modeling career. His family has carried forward a touch of his fame and creative energy throughout his life. Jagger has navigated the challenges of very public relationships, constant press scrutiny, and the joys and difficulties of fatherhood. His connections with his children and partners have been as dynamic and complex as his career, with public interest in his private world never fading. Yet despite all the fascination with his personal life, Jagger has rarely let it distract from his music. The Rolling Stones' work ethic, with Jagger at the center, has remained relentless, their tours and albums continuing to draw huge crowds and earn praise. There have been few real theories about Jagger's private life, aside from occasional unsubstantiated rumors about his relationships or the secret to his lasting energy and youthful appearance. The most enduring mysteries around Jagger aren't about hidden scandals, but about how he has balanced such an enormous public life with the endless demands of his career. Now in his 80s, Jagger has not only defied age, he has transcended it, remaining a central figure in an industry obsessed with youth. The Rolling Stones have never rested on their achievements. Instead, they've kept touring, with the No Filter tour resuming in 2021 after pauses caused by Jagger's heart surgery and the global pandemic. Their return to the stage was a powerful statement of continued relevance, and proof of Jagger's remarkable recovery and enduring stamina. In recent years, Jagger has also embraced the digital world, staying active on social media. His posts give fans glimpses into his personal life and his thoughts on current events, bringing him closer to audiences than ever before. In 2020, he released the track Easy Sleazy with Dave Grohl of Foo Fighters, a collaboration that bridged generations of rock and offered a sharp, satirical take on the COVID-19 pandemic. Beyond music, Mick Jagger's talents have extended into other areas of entertainment. Mick Jagger's gifts have moved far beyond the concert stage into the world of film, with that same magnetic charisma. He didn't just try acting, he dove in head first. Think about it, this is a man who never does anything halfway. His movie debut came back in 1970 with Performance, where he played a rock star. Talk about art imitating life, and he didn't stop there. In Ned Kelly, 1970, he traded his microphone for guns, stepping into the role of the legendary Australian outlaw. A big leap from rock and roll, but Mick was never afraid of a challenge. Fast forward to the 1990s, and there's Mick in Freejack, 1992, a sci-fi thriller where he chased immortality. Then he showed quiet intensity in The Man from Elysian Fields, 2001. Playing the owner of an escort agency. It was a side of Mick the stadium lights and spotlights never revealed, but Mick's creativity wasn't limited to acting. He founded Jagged Films, his own production company, which brought us Enigma in 2001, a wartime thriller that kept audiences on edge, and let's not forget The Women, 2008, where he served as producer rather than star, but his influence was felt throughout. Through these roles and projects, Mick brought the same raw energy to film that he brought to music. He may be known for his voice and those iconic moves, but his work in movies proves there's far more to Mick Jagger than just rock and roll. Mick Jagger didn't just leave his mark in entertainment, he also stepped into the business world with the sharp instincts of a seasoned entrepreneur. That he understood that show business glamour isn't only about applause, it's also about smart deals behind the scenes. So he put on his business hat and got to work. Jagger explored the fashion world, aligning perfectly with his rock star image and the style icons he always moved among. That he also made smart moves in real estate, investing in property, a classic strategy with a modern twist. Picture Mick not just in the recording studio, but in boardrooms, making decisions that expanded his empire far beyond the stage. But Mick's business interests went beyond things you can touch. He has a sharp eye for the digital world too, getting involved in tech ventures as cutting edge as his music was in its day. He has embraced the internet era, understanding that the digital stage is just as important as any physical one. From fashion to real estate to technology, Mick Jagger's business moves show the same boldness and innovation he brought to music. Jagger's influence reaches into activism and philanthropy as well, his support for environmental causes and his work advocating for music and the arts have established him as a thoughtful voice in global conversations. He has spoken out strongly about climate change, using his platform to raise awareness about this urgent issue. In the fight against climate change, Jagger has backed worldwide movements, encouraging his enormous fan base to take action for the planet. In times of disaster, Jagger has stepped forward to help. He and the Stones have played relief concerts, including the concert for New York City after September 11th and the December 12th concert for Hurricane Sandy relief. Those events raised huge amounts of money for victims, and served as powerful symbols of hope and unity in dark times. Education is another area where Jagger's giving has made a real difference. He has supported music education for underprivileged children, understanding how deeply music can enrich lives and nurture talent. His contributions have helped provide instruments and instruction to kids who might otherwise never have had the chance to explore music. While some fans playfully speculate about secret elixirs or extraordinary genes, the real explanation for his remarkable physical strength seems to be a combination of disciplined living, pure passion for what he does, and an unbreakable spirit. Mick Jagger's life story could fill libraries of rock and roll tales, a blend of fierce music, complicated family chapters, and bold ventures into film and business. From the Church of England to temples in LA, from Catholicism to the pages of atheism, his spiritual path has been as varied as his musical styles. His personal life is a rich tapestry of relationships, love stories that brought 8 children into the world, children who have stepped into the spotlight in their own ways, carrying forward the Jagger legacy. Jagger didn't just own music stages, he also stepped onto the silver screen, showing real acting talent in films like Performance and Ned Kelly, and later as a smart businessman behind the scenes in production, bringing stories to life with projects like Enigma. His business ventures stretched from fashion to real estate, revealing a mind as strategic as it was creative. Through everything, his music has remained the constant heartbeat, evolving across decades, reflecting every era, and influencing generation after generation. His melodies have become anthems, his performances etched forever into the memory of rock and roll fans around the world. From a young man with a harmonica to a knighted rock icon, Mick Jagger's journey stands as proof of a life lived at full volume, a symphony of success, reinvention, and timeless appeal. Let us know your thoughts on his life and career in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this. And before you go, make sure to check out the next video playing on your screen.